In this video, you're going to learn how to build this awesome Gantt chart in Google Sheets. This Gantt chart is fully dynamic in that you can select the project's start date, and then all of the weeks, dates, and formatting update automatically. You can track and assign tasks, enter the start date and duration with an auto-calculated end date, enter the % complete and get this auto-generated progress bar, and of course, the bars in the Gantt chart all adjust automatically to show your progress on every single task. Not to mention that the current date is always highlighted as well. Okay, if you're ready to build it, then let's get to it. And if not, you can find a link to purchase the template instead in the description. As always, we will be starting with a blank Google Sheets spreadsheet. Our first step is to set up the worksheet structure. So up in the top left corner, click here in this box, which is called the name box, and type in A through Z and press enter to select all of the columns. Now right click on the column headers and resize the columns to 60. Next, select columns C through E, then hold the Control key and also select columns G and I. Then right click and resize the columns to 100. Then select columns A and B, right click, and resize to 35. That does it for the columns, so now let's do the rows. Click in the name box and enter 1 through 1000 to select all of the rows. Then right click on the row headers and resize the rows to 30. Finally, select row 1, right-click, and resize this row to 50. Awesome. Now, let's type in all of the labels. Starting with cell B1, enter in the title for your Gantt chart. In my case, I'm just going to type in Project Gantt Chart. Next, in cell B3, type in Project Start Date. Then in B5, type in the £, then over to the right, type in task, then assigned to, start, days, end, %, and complete. Nice. Select cell B6 next and enter 1, then below enter 2. You can now use the fill handle to expand the list down a little ways. It doesn't matter how far that you go though, because at the end of the video, I'll show you how to expand the Gantt chart down for more tasks and across for more days. For now, to make things easy, just go down a few rows. Once you've done that, select all of the cells in the spreadsheet by clicking here. Then change the horizontal alignment to center and the vertical alignment to middle. Next, select columns B through D and change the horizontal alignment back to left. Nice. At this point, go ahead and enter a few pieces of sample data. This is going to help you validate your formulas when you write them later. And be sure to also type in a project start date into cell D3 as well. And once you've entered in some sample data, the next step is to format the dates. So select cell D3, then hold Control, and then select the cells in the start date column, and also the cells in the end date column. Then click the More Formats button, and select Custom Date and Time. You can then select a date format that you like, and click Apply. Awesome. Now you can turn off the grid lines by going to View, Show, uncheck Grid Lines. Alright, your next step is going to be to add in some color and formatting. Start by selecting row 1, increase the font size to 16, bold the text, add a dark blue fill color, and change the font color to white. Next, select B3 through C3, merge the cells, bold the font, and add a light gray fill color. Then select D3 and change the horizontal alignment to center. Next, select B5 through I5, bold the font, and add a light gray fill color. Then select J4 all the way to Y5, bold the font, add a light gray fill color, and change the font color to dark blue. Nice. Now for some borders. Select the range B5 through I13 or down to the rest of your sample data, and then click the Borders button, change the color to light gray 1 right here, then click this to apply all borders. Now select J6 through Y13 or all the way down to your last row of sample data, click the Borders button, and apply all borders. Then select B3 through D3, click the Borders button, and apply all borders. Awesome. For your final formatting touch, select the cells in the end date column, and add a light gray fill color, and change the font color to blue. This is going to help remind you that the end dates are calculated automatically. Now it's time to add in some formulas. Let's start with calculating the end date. The goal is to calculate the end date by using the start date and number of days. Also, we only want to consider work days here, or in other words, only Monday through Friday. We don't want to consider Saturdays or Sundays in our calculation. So, our formula is going to look like this. Select cell G6 and enter in equals if function is blank function E6 close parentheses next argument quote dash quote next argument workday function E6 next argument F6 minus 1 close parentheses twice and press enter. This formula calculates the end date by adding the designated number of workdays to the start date using the workday formula. And you subtract 1 so that you don't get an extra day added in there. And of course, once you have the formula, just copy it down using the fill handle. Nice. Now let's write the formula for the completion bars. Start in cell I6 and enter the formula equals if error function sparkline function H6 next argument open bracket quote chart type quote comma quote bar quote semicolon quote max quote comma 1 close bracket close parentheses next argument 2 quotes then close parentheses and press enter. Now we just copy the formula down with the fill handle. Nice. Your next formula is going to calculate the starting day based on your project start date. So select cell J4 and enter the following formula. Equals if function weekday function D3 next argument 2 close parentheses greater than 5 next argument D3 plus 8 minus weekday function D3 next argument 2 close parentheses next argument D3 close parentheses. Now, what is this formula actually doing? Well, first it checks to see if the project start date falls on Saturday or Sunday. In other words, it uses the weekday function to check if the weekday number is 6 or 7 using Monday as 1, Tuesday as 2, etc. If the project start date is a Saturday or Sunday, then the next part of the formula adds 8 to the start date and subtracts the weekday number of the start date, resulting in the next Monday after the start date. This ensures that the start date falls on the next available workday, which is Monday. And of course, if the project start date is not a Saturday or Sunday, then the formula simply returns the project start date itself. Now, once you finish the formula, you can see that the date doesn't quite fit. So let's update the number formatting so it does. In fact, you will update the number formatting for all of the date cells in row 4. So select the range J4 through Y4, click on the More Formats button, Custom Date and Time, then clear the contents in this box. Then click the down arrow, select Month, change it to Month as abbreviation, then enter a space, click the down arrow, select Day, and finally click Apply. Awesome. The date now fits, so we can write the next formula that's going to calculate the days following the start date. Begin by selecting cell K4 and enter the following formula. Equals if function, weekday function, J4, next argument 2, then close parentheses, equals 5, next argument, J4 plus 3, next argument, J4 plus 1, close parentheses, and enter. Now, what is this formula doing? Well, all it's doing is looking to see if the weekday in cell J4 is a Friday. If it is, then the formula adds 3 to make the next day a Monday. And if not, it simply increments that date by 1. This way, you always have Monday through Friday and no weekends. And to finish the dates, just use the fill handle to expand this formula to cell Y4. Awesome. One more formula to go. Select cell J5 and enter the following. Equals text function J4, next argument, quote, DDD, quote, close parentheses, and enter. This formula simply returns the referenced date as the text version of whatever weekday that it happens to be. And with that, you can copy this formula across using the fill handle. Sweet. Now we will add in some conditional formatting to complete the Gantt chart. This is the best part about the whole thing, so let's get to it. First, let's add conditional formatting to distinguish the different weeks in our list of dates. So select J4 through Y5, then go to Format, Conditional Formatting. In the panel on the right, under Format Cells If, select Custom Formula Is. Then for the formula, enter equals, is odd function, week num function, J, $4, and close parentheses 2 times. This formula checks to see if the week number for the date is odd and returns true or false. As a result, you're going to get alternating true and false for each week. And with that, all that's left is to change the fill color to light gray 1 and click on Done. Awesome. Now let's add a rule to highlight the current date. Click on Add Another Rule and make sure that the range here is still J4 through Y5. Then under Format Cells If, select Custom Formula Is. And then for the formula, enter in equals today function, close parentheses, equals $4. Then for the fill color, select a bright yellow, and then for the font color, select black, and click on Done. Now, this last part is important. Drag the current date rule, the one with the yellow, above the gray one. You do this so that the current date always shows up and isn't covered up by the other conditional formatting. And at this point, we just have two more conditional formatting rules to write. One to represent the task duration and the other to represent the task completion. Let's do the task duration rule first. Now, to make this easy on ourselves, let's write the formula in cell J6 first, and then we can copy and paste that formula into the conditional formatting rule that we will create. So the goal is to write a formula that returns true if the date happens to fall in the range of the start and end date for each particular task. So in cell J6, enter the following formula: equals and function $E6 less than greater than, and this represents do not equal, by the way. Then type in two quotes, next argument, $4 greater than equals $E6, next argument, $4 less than equals $G6, close parentheses, and press enter. Now let's look at this formula to see what it's doing. This formula uses the AND function to check three conditions, and if all three of them are true, then the formula returns true. The first condition simply checks to see if the start date has been set. The next condition checks to see if the date in cell J4 is on or comes after the start date. And finally, the last condition checks to see if the date in cell J4 comes before or is equal to the end date. And if each condition is true, then the date in cell J4 does indeed fall within the date ranges for the task, so the resulting true value will trigger the conditional formatting to color the cell. Now, one more very important detail you might have noticed is the dollar signs. The dollar signs are included to make sure that the references all change accordingly as this formula is copied to all of the other cells in the Gantt chart. The dollar signs ensure that each cell is going to reference the corresponding start and end dates as well as the correct date in the date list above. And now that you have the formula, it's time to add the conditional formatting itself. So start by selecting the formula in the formula bar and use Ctrl-C to copy and then press Enter to exit. Then select the range J6 through Y13, and in the conditional formatting panel on the right, click on Add Another Rule. Select Custom Formula Is, and in the formula box, use Ctrl-V to paste the formula. Then, for the fill color below, click the plus icon here, and for the hex code, which determines a very specific color, enter in hashtag EAF5FF. Then click OK, and then Done. Awesome. Just one more conditional formatting rule to go. Once again, we're going to write the formula first, and then create the conditional formatting rule after. And we actually are just going to adjust the formula that we already wrote in cell J6. So select cell J6, and in the formula bar, change the first argument to $H6 less than greater than 0. Then leave the second argument as it is, and for the last argument, change the $G6 to the following: workday function, $E6, next argument, $F6 times $H6 minus 1. Then close parentheses and press Enter. Now this formula checks to see if the percentage value is not 0. It also checks to see if the date on top is on or after the start date. And finally, the last argument calculates a date that is some number of workdays after the start date based on the percent complete. And then it checks to see if the date on top is on or before that calculated date. And of course, if all three conditions are true, then you get back true. And now that you have the formula, you just need to add in the conditional formatting. So first, select the formula in the formula bar and use Ctrl-C to copy, and then press Enter to exit. Then select the range J6 through Y13, and then in the panel on the right, click on Add Another Rule. Select Custom Formula Is, and in the formula box, paste the formula. Then, for the fill color, select this dark blue color right here, then click on Done. Finally, drag the dark blue rule above the light blue rule, then close the panel on the right, delete the formula in cell J6, and you are officially finished with your Google Sheets Gantt chart. Now, before you go, I want to show you how to expand the Gantt chart just in case you need to add more days or more tasks. First, how to add more tasks. All you have to do is select the bottom row of the entire Gantt chart like this, then just drag down with the fill handle like so. And you can delete any of the extra dummy data that also gets copied over. Now, what about adding more days? Well, you could expand the chart using the fill handle on the right, but you will run into the edge of the spreadsheet this way. Instead, select a number of columns in the middle of the Gantt chart, right-click, and insert more columns. Then, just select the date and day right before the gap, and drag the fill handle all the way to the end, and that's all there is to it. Plus, if you want to freeze rows and columns to make it easier to scroll and see everything, just select cell I5, then go to View, Freeze, up to row 5, then View, Freeze, up to column I. And now you have a fully functional, awesome Gantt chart in Google Sheets. Leave a like if you had fun, subscribe if you learned something new, and until next time, I will see you in the next Spreadsheet Life video.